Hi everyone, my name is Arleny and I will be leading you today in our family workshop. Our theme is Valentine's Day, and so I've come up with 3 different projects, 3 different levels of difficulty for you to do at home. And it's great for having the little ones get involved and help spread some love this Valentine's Day. So the very first one I have right here, and these are little love trees. And again, these are perfect for the little ones at home. Most of the materials you'll need for these workshops are going to be paper, some glue, and a pencil, some tape, and we'll be getting started with this. I have 2 versions. One is a little easier, one is a little more complicated, in case you want an extra pop, something sculpture-like, or you just want to push yourself a little more. And I'll be showing you how to do both versions. So let's get started. So I've already picked out my background, which is this white sheet of paper. I only have white glue, and since we are doing a 3D one, I want to make sure that I don't have white glue showing on colored paper, so that's why I chose this white one. And I'm going to go ahead and use this brown for the tree bark. If you don't have these colors at home, don't feel worried or pressured. Go ahead and use whatever colors are available to you. And if you only have white sheets of paper, then you can go ahead and color them with crayons, markers, or paint. Make some fun patterns or designs, so that way the workshop project that you create is completely unique to you. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace my hand. And if you have a little one with you, this is perfect to have them put their hand and trace it. The more arm that you get, the longer and bigger that your tree is going to be. So just a quick trace. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And if you wanted to do multiple trees, that is also an option. But for mine, I'm only going to do one. And since I do have the pencil lines visible, I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over so that you can't see those. And then I'm going to glue down my hand. Next, I want to make my hearts. So I'm going to start with the easier hearts. I'm going to take just this red paper that I have here. I'm going to fold it in half. Think back to like elementary when you were cutting hearts. And I'm just going to cut a couple of hearts out. That way they are nice and symmetrical. And again, feel free to use whatever colors you have. They don't have to be Valentine's Day colors. They can be your favorite colors or the favorite colors of the person you're going to give this to. I'm going to open up my paper, fold it in half again to really make the most of my resources. And I'm just going to repeat the process. I have some more parts that I pre-cut. And so what I like to do is I like to sort of plan out where I want these hearts to go. They can go around the fingers, right, in case you want to write on the fingers, like the 5 reasons why you love somebody, or you could cover it so it's more of a full tree, completely up to you. So again, this is the easy version. But now let's add in some 3D sculpture like hearts. Gonna take some scrap paper and I'm gonna cut about an inch wide and I'm just gonna cut across. And if it's not straight, that's totally fine because we're gonna fix that soon. So now I have this paper, I'm gonna fold it in half. And then the open ends that can be separated, I'm gonna take some tape and secure it. And then when I sort of push it up, there's some manipulation that I can now do. So the very top where my index finger is, I'm gonna bring that all the way down towards the bottom. So now I'm starting to form that heart. And then I'm gonna squeeze it. And in my opinion, for at least my project, I think this is a little too high. So I'm gonna fold it and I'm gonna cut multiple hearts out of it. So I'm gonna try to get maybe 2 or 3. And now I have these nice thinner hearts. And if it's a little too pointy for you, you can always manipulate the paper and sculpt it to a shape that you are happy with and that you like. Now for gluing down these hearts, I'm gonna take a paper plate, or you can just have some white sheet of paper, fold it in half or whatever you don't mind getting glue on. I'm gonna put some glue on it. I wanna make sure I have enough of a circle, like diameter, for the biggest hearts that I have, because it'll just make things easier. And for gluing these down, what I found works best is if you take the heart and you just push it lightly into your glue puddle. And then once we have enough glue, you just push it down gently onto your surface and be careful not to knock it over because they're really easy to unglue. So just wait for it to dry before you do anything else. And so again, your project can look something like either of these. For my 3D sculpture, I went in and I colored the empty spaces so it wasn't just white. And then for my other one, my simple heart shapes, right, I wrote "I love you because," and then listed off different reasons. This is our first one. Again, this is really great to have your little ones get involved. But now we're going to move on to something that is a little bit more difficult, but equally rewarding. So up next, we have this nice little bouquet of flowers, and it just fell out. That's okay. And again, this is just paper, and so I'm going to show you how to make each flower. The flowers are a little time consuming, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. So first things first is you want to choose the color for your flowers. I don't have any more pink or red, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this nice yellow. I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm just gonna draw a circle. The bigger the circle, the bigger your flower will be, but be careful of drawing it too big because then when you're rolling it, it can get a little tricky. So out of this piece of paper, I'm gonna try to get maybe 2 roses. Again, circles don't have to be perfect. Just gonna go ahead and cut those out. There's one. and 2. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take your circle, and you can start anywhere. It doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is we're going to cut a swirl. So you're going to start cutting around and just keep following the shape of that circle. And you're going to start moving inwards as you make your way around the circle so that you don't cut a piece off. Think of like those hanging swirl decorations that you see during the holiday season. That's sort of what we're aiming for. And when you start to get towards the end of it, you're going to want a little circle like so. And you're going to do that to each of the circles that you cut out. So again, you are cutting around and in so that you don't cut off a piece of your circle. And when you start getting towards the center, you want a little circle left. There we go. So here are your swirls. Now, you're going to take one and you're going to start with the pointy end, so that furthest part from the center. And you're going to start to roll it in. Sometimes getting started is a little tricky, but then you start getting the hang of it. You want to try to keep the paper as tight as possible and the bottom as close as possible. So you're going to roll, keep rolling until you make your way towards that little circle that we left in the center. And it might start to look a little weird. The shape might not be what you expected. That's okay. We're going to loosen it up so that we can manipulate the shape a little. So keep rolling that. And remember, the bigger your circle is, the bigger your flower will be. You don't want your circle too big because then making your flower gets a little tricky. So I'm starting to get towards that inner circle, and I'm just gonna release it. And I'm gonna push the center back down since it came up a little bit. And now you see that I have this little rose of sorts. So I'm gonna make sure that that center is staying in. So I'm gonna keep my thumb there. I'm gonna go to where our little circle is and grab my glue. And I'm gonna put a generous amount. And then I'm also gonna extend outward. And then I'm going to push the flower down, hold it for about 10 seconds, just so that it has the ability to really cling to that glue. And then I'm gonna set it off to the side. So again, starting with the pointy end, and I am trying to keep that center as tight as possible. And just rolling, trying to keep the paper aligned and making my way towards the center. A great thing to do with these roses is to choose a couple of different colors to really make things pop, and also play around with the shapes and the size of it. So if you have any of those fun scissors that cut zigzags, you can do that as well. And then your flower will have a nice little zigzag pattern to the petal. And just play around with how big or small you're making your circles. So again, generous amount in the center, extend outward, keeping that center pushed in, and then holding it in place for about 10 seconds. And then we're going to make the center of our bouquet. So for that, I'm just gonna need some blank white paper. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna crumple this into a ball. Because I want this to be a decently sized ball, I'm gonna combine two papers so it's just thicker, and I'm gonna just crumple it. If you have a smooth round surface that you can wrap in paper, that's even better, but I don't, so we're just using this. And that's fine. That'll work for what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take another sheet of paper, I'm gonna fold it in half. And I'm gonna roll it. This is gonna serve as my stem. And then I'm gonna tape it. And I'm gonna go back to that crumpled paper. I'm gonna try to make an opening so that I have somewhere to put my stem. And if you need to reshape, that's fine. I'm gonna reshape a little bit. I'm gonna take some tape and I'm gonna tape down the center to the stem. Now, for my personal taste, I think the stem is a little too long, so I'm gonna cut a little off. And then I'm gonna set that down. I'm gonna look for the same color paper that I used for my roses. And I'm gonna try to wrap it around. So I'm probably gonna cut this down a little bit because this paper is a little thicker. So if you're working with construction paper, you're gonna wanna cut down the size so that you're able to roll it up just a little better. And like this. And again, we're just gonna tape it down. And now I pre-made a bunch of roses so that you don't have to watch me make a ton of them. Again, this is a little time consuming, but once you start finding a rhythm, it speeds up. And these roses will last longer than real ones. So that's an incentive as well. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start taping or gluing these roses down to form our bouquet. So take a little bit of tape or hot glue, tie it to the back, and then press it on. And you want to try to keep your roses close together so they look nice and full. But if you don't have enough or you ran out, then you can space them out because again, we match the color of the roses to the center so it won't look too sparse or too empty. And if you wanted to make this a bigger bouquet, then you would just make sure that you're crumpling more paper so that that center has a larger surface area for you to work with. And then if you're working with multiple colors, then you really want to try to keep those roses nice and tight and together so that that center color that you chose isn't peeking out too much. So it's slowly starting to come together. Let's see if there's any other place I want to put. But I think I'm okay if it starts to look a little empty, then I can add in some more afterwards. So now, next thing I want to do is embellish my bouquet, and I also want to hide this tape and the stem because that's not very attractive. So I'm gonna grab some tissue paper, and these are too big for the size that we're working with. So I'm gonna go ahead and fold it in half and then cut in half. And if you don't have tissue paper, then you can definitely just use construction paper or colored paper. The thinner the paper is, the easier it'll be to wrap your bouquet. So you might want to avoid things like cardstock. So I cut it in half. I'm going to cut it in half one more time. And then I am going to take my square, rotate it so that it's more like of a diamond shape. I'm going to take the bottom corner and I'm going to bring it up and then over. So I don't want it to connect because I want to create some textures. I'm going to take my bouquet, going to set it down, and I am going to cross it over to start covering that tape. And I'm going to take some tape, clear tape, and I'm going to tape it down. I'm going to do that again with the other half. Okay, you want it to be diamond-like. I'm going to bring the bottom corner up, but before you connect it, you are going to turn it to either the left or the right side, whatever your preference is. Put your bouquet down gently and wrap. And then tape. And this is what our bouquet looks like. And you could add different colors of tissue paper patterns just to change it up to make it look bigger, but this is good for me. Set that off to the side. And we're going to move on to our last project. So I'm going to take another sheet of paper, just going to place it down. This is going to protect my surface because I'm going to be working with glue and popsicle sticks next. So I have these really thin popsicle sticks that you can find at the 99-cent store. I got a pack of 50. And you're going to cut a couple of them in half. Be careful when cutting them in half because they can fly out or just splinter, and safety is our priority. What we're going to do is we're going to build a geometric heart box like this one. This is something that takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of patience because you are waiting for things to dry so you're not moving them around too much. But again, the end result is really rewarding. So I'm going to take 2 popsicle sticks that I have not cut, and I'm going to make a V shape. Again, I'm just marking things so that I know how wide my box is going to be. And I want to make sure that everything is right before I start gluing down. Then I'm going to take those half popsicle sticks that I cut, and I am going to place them on top vertically. I'm going to take 2 more, and these I'm going to angle inward. 2 more, and these are going to be the center of the heart. So I'm going to angle those down. And my pieces are long enough, so now I can start gluing them down. What I like to do is I like to start with the bottom pieces, those long ones, and then just put glue directly on there. Hold it in place a little bit. And you want to work fast when you are starting with the base, because as you're gluing, things are naturally going to move, and you want to make sure that you have the necessary width that you need. Next, that piece. And then we just need our centers. And there we have our heart. That's our base. And we're gonna let our base dry because we wanna make sure that we don't move it around or knock a piece off. And once this has dried, you can continue building on top of it. And as you're building, you don't really need to wait for it to dry in between each layer. Just make sure you're really careful as you're adding more height to it. And as you keep building, you should end up with something like this. Again, you can make your box as tall as you want. This is where I decided to stop. This is where I felt comfortable. And once you get to this stage, what you can do is that you can paint your box. So you can paint it with acrylic paint. You can use a hot glue gun to add some buttons or pom-poms or anything that you have at home, or you can just leave it like this. I'm leaving mine just like this because what I put in the center, I want that to really stand out. And I'm going back to what we did for the bouquet of flowers, and I'm using those flowers that I made to fill in the box. But before I do that, I want to make sure that when I put my flower in, it doesn't go through. So I'm going to add a base for it. And most of my flowers are pink, so I'm going to use pink paper. Gonna put my box down. Gonna take my pencil, and I'm just going to very lightly trace the outside of the box. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. And this is what I end up with. And when I cut that out, I have this space. So when I glue it down, it'll look something like this. So that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do next. I'm gonna flip my box over. Gonna add glue to each stick, a generous amount because I want to make sure it doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere. Gonna flip it over and then press down so that that glue is adhering to the paper. And as this is drying, I can go ahead and fill my box. So again, just gonna take some flowers that I made earlier, gonna put them in my box. I made different sizes so I can get those little corners filled. And you can glue these down if you want. I recommend planning out where you want each flower to go. Like that. And then you end up with something like this. And you could fill in the empty spaces with little trinkets that you have around, or you can just leave it as is. That's pretty much all I have for this workshop. I hope that you were able to follow along. And if there's any parts that were a little tricky, just go back and replay them. Take your time. The roses are a little tricky, but you'll get the hang of it. And thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Arleny, so much for teaching us all those 3 different kinds of Valentine's Day activities. I'm very excited to try the box. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and tuning in. Be sure to try out all of these different activities and stay tuned for all of our upcoming workshops. Thank you, Arleny, again. Everyone, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.